Roberto, there's a perception in this country that the FA Cup is not just very special in England, but it's also known throughout the world. As a lad growing up in Spain, were you aware of it at all?
I wasn't. No.
You weren't?
No.
So we're wrong?
Well, no, I wouldn't say you're wrong. I think as a growing up as a child, I don't think you get engaged with the FA Cup in England as yet. But I think when you start understanding the game and you want to follow leagues around the world, if there is a competition that you are fascinated by, is the FA Cup. And I would go down to that FA Cup final day, where there's a lot of talking about how the teams got there and reaching the dream of playing at Wembley. And I think that's got a bit of an effect. But I must admit, I was just taken away. First time I played in the FA Cup, and it was with Wigan against Runcorn, and I could not believe.
Runcorn, local.
So very local, but it was a non-league against a professional team. But the amount of people that they follow the game, the way it was followed, the replay, everything about it, and you understood that was the best cup competition in world football.
Is it different to the Spanish Cup, Copa del Rey?
Yeah. I think Copa del Rey, with all honesty, is a bit of a distraction in the middle of the league. Teams only take it seriously when they goes to the semi-final or you got an opportunity to get into the final. You always feel that the draw is made in a way that Madrid and Barcelona will get into the final, and the whole thing has got no sense of a dream. It's more the big.
It doesn't have that similar magic that when you're watching it here as a youngster that the FA Cup has.
No, at all, no. And remember that they tried to, because obviously when they play against any team over two legs, 9 out of 10, the best team always goes through. You don't get that opportunity that we get here in the FA Cup, that it could go down to one leg away from home in difficult conditions in a non-league environment, and it becomes a 50-50 game. Really, you don't get that in other cup competitions in Spain or other countries. France.
Yeah, so you think in a way we regard it as magical, the FA Cup. It's not just us thinking, well, it's only our cup competition that counts around the world.
No. I think it catches the eye of every football fan when they start watching. I think this season there were many people in Spain watching the game, just one of the third rounds, and you're looking at a non-league team against a professional side, and all of a sudden there is an understanding that wow, that's more than a football game, and it has been that magic feeling is been supported around the world clearly.
Did it surprise you when you first came over and started playing, like you said, Wigan? Did it surprise you how important it was to people?
It was because I remember that obviously in our eyes is it's a cup game. We need to focus on the league game at the weekend, but it wasn't. The season stops and it's just a focus on that game, and it's like an open door to a dream and becoming something special. And then I will always remember walking into the ground and seeing a full crowd capacity, and we thought, it's incredible how well supported the home team is. And it wasn't. It's such a big game that we had over 3,000 fans traveling in such a small ground, and you understood there how much that game meant for our fans. And then you start playing thinking it'll be over by half time, as you already do in Spain. If you play a non-league team in Spain, they try to play the same way that you play, so you're going to have better players, so you'll always win. Here obviously everyone has got different ways of playing, and we were lucky to draw that game, and we took it into a replay at Springfield Park, and you understood there that there is no divisional status in this sort of competition. It was a realization of something special.
You became manager of Wigan, clearly. Did you ever believe it would be possible for a club like Wigan, that haven't been around that long in the Football League, let alone the top flight, to actually win the FA Cup?
No, I don't think you can sit down and I'm optimistic by nature, but even I would struggle to sit down and say, yes, we're going to win the FA Cup. No, I do think that you develop some sort of a mentality that on the day you can beat anyone. I think that's true. I think you get to a point that Wigan, as it was that sort of story. A man, the owner, Dave Whelan, that he's been very successful in everything he did, a football man in essence, and he gave us that impression around the town, and you feel, well, we can go and beat any of the teams that we're going to be facing, but to sit down and think we're going to win the FA Cup, I don't think anyone could have had that.
At what sort of stage during that cup run did you start to think, actually, there's a real chance here?
Ooh, it's difficult. Looking back, you always had a huge challenge. I don't think you could. I think the experience that we had in the FA Cup was that if you go to face Macclesfield away from home, is a tough round, and we never thought any further. We got into the situation where we had to face Everton at Goodison Park, probably the best
quarterfinals.
Yeah, the best team that you could, or the worst team that you could face away from home, because Goodison at that time was that sort of place, and Everton were in a real need of getting to Wembley, and you felt that was an impossible situation, and we enjoyed that sort of role, if you want. So I don't think we never had a plan of saying, oh, let's get through that round, and we got a great opportunity. Even going to the semi-final, we were facing a championship team, Millwall. All of a sudden, we've been the underdogs against Everton. All of a sudden, you become the favourites against Millwall, and that's the magic of the cup. You need to be able to be adaptable. You need to be able to go to a non-league ground and win. You need to be able to be the favourites and outplay a team to win. And I think that's the hardest aspect of a team to be able to reach the final, is that you need to be chameleonic in the way you play.
And these days, of course, the semi-finals at Wembley as well, and that was the first time that Wigan have played in an FA Cup game at Wembley.
And I must admit, I think we won the final because we played the semi-final at Wembley, and we used it as a rehearsal. When we came down to the semi-final, we went to Wembley and we walked around and we enjoyed the stadium, and we enjoyed everything we were going to see. And I thought the final was just a pure football game. And that was a real advantage.
Why do you think that was an advantage? Because obviously, you're playing Manchester City, and they've had plenty of experience of playing in big games like that.
No, an advantage from our point of view to be able to concentrate in the game. I think when you get into a final and you play Wembley, first you need to play the aspect of going to a new event and going to Wembley, and you don't know how you're going to fit in those surroundings. And we got rid of that with the semi-final. I think we really, really enjoyed going there, playing a really good game, a close but tense game against Millwall. And that was just, okay, well, we played at Wembley. And then going into the final, it wasn't the case of going into a final. It was, we need to be perfect in what we're going to do on the pitch, tactically, especially if we want to beat a team like Man City. And I thought that was down to not having the experience of having to play at Wembley, because we did that in the semi-final.
Describe to me, though, the emotions and the feeling walking out of that tunnel at Wembley. And you were the owner, of course, with Dave Whelan.
Yeah, well, it was. There were many stories, because obviously I always found that it was a bit of a close circle with Dave Whelan. Dave Whelan broke his leg in a FA Cup final.
He tells people occasionally.
Yes, but obviously at that time I was eager to see, after what he did in the game and coming back as an owner, I wanted him to lead the team at Wembley. So what we did is I wanted the chairman to lead the team in the semi-final, because we never thought maybe we won't get into the final. So we asked permission in the FA, and they said, well, the teams don't come out in the semi-final. So obviously
it's different. You don't have that big parade.
So in the final it was a great feeling of satisfaction. It was like football paying back to a person that has given so much to football. And I will always remember, as we coming out, he pointed at this, and he had his grandson, and he pointed at the area. He said, "That's where Granddad broke his leg," and it was a sense of closure, and it was a really, really special moment that I feel is very much fitting in what the FA Cup is.
For you, your concerns, just the game and getting a result?
Tactical. It was. I was so disappointed. We played Man City probably around 6 weeks before that game, and we were the better side at the Etihad, and we lost. And that was my concern. If we can be a better team than Manchester City from a technical and tactical aspect, why did we not win the game? And everything was psychological. Is having the belief of we can win the game. So my focus was very much to replicate that performance and try to work on the psychological aspect, and the staff and everyone. I'm talking about the kid man, from everyone in the first team staff. The work was psychological in that week, preparing the players on focusing on the performance and forgetting about playing the FA Cup final. And
it's difficult for players, though, especially players who are not used to huge games like that.
Yes, but again, playing the semi-final at Wembley helped, and I think every player had a real focus on the performance and what we had to do. And that was a key, playing the game. Forget about playing the final, the FA Cup final. I think we all had the realization of, we've been involved in the FA Cup final just after the final whistle. I don't think we found it that way. If sometimes I remember walking to Wembley, everyone was relaxed. Everyone was looking forward to the experience, looking forward to the game. It wasn't anything to be afraid of. And clearly, you have to be. When you play against a team like Manchester City, that they just won the league, they know how to win big events, big finals. You need to be perfect in your performance. You cannot get lucky and win a game like that.
It really was. I mean, it's the biggest shock probably for 25 years since Wimbledon beat Liverpool.
Yes.
It must have been an extraordinary experience to pull off a surprise like that.
It was. There were a couple of stories involved in the game. Ben Watson broke his leg in a game against Liverpool at Anfield, and the doctors, and obviously medically he should have missed the whole season. And Ben was working away behind the scenes, and as we were going through the rounds, we were always talking to Ben, saying, maybe you'll make the semi-final, maybe you'll make. And it was that light for him to keep pushing himself, and he got back well before the date, and he comes on as a sub and he scores the winner, which is, it only happens in the FA Cup. And the other story was the man of the match, Callum McManaman, a young man that he was released by Everton, and he was an Everton fan, and he wasn't ready when he started working with the first team, and we put a plan of 2 years. He went out on loan. He had to do he had to go through certain spells and then start breaking into the first team, just through the FA Cup. He was a player, one of those that you start giving him a bit of responsibility in the FA Cup, and he took that on board really, really well. And he became a very important player in the first team, and he ended up being the man of the match in the FA Cup. So it was a accumulation of beautiful stories that only happen in the FA Cup.
I mean, a beautiful story. Substitute coming on, broken his leg, injury time, only goal of the game. That must have been one of the great pinnacles of your career, both in terms of a player and a manager, I would imagine.
Well, if I'm honest with you, at that moment, Guy, I was thinking, how are we going to take advantage of having an extra man? Because at that point, Zabaleta got sent off. I think we were superior throughout the game, and that's why they end up with a player with 2 bookings. And in my mind, I was only trying to get ready to get maybe in the extra time, that advantage with the extra man. So when the ball went in, I didn't even expect that we could score from that corner. I know at that time, Graham Barrow and Dennis Lawrence, they work a lot on attacking set plays, and obviously Ben Watson is someone that he attacks that near post area well. But in my mind, it wasn't the case. I had to, when the final whistle went, I was a little bit shocked because I was still playing the game in my head.
Yeah. But what about the emotions when it hit the net? Can you remember anything? Or?
Well, straight away, as a manager, you're not allowed to enjoy those moments because you're thinking, how are we going to be organised? How we can see it?
It wasn't long left.
It wasn't long left, but it seemed long at that time. Yeah. I remember the whole bench was looking to the 4th official. I think we gave him constant attention. How long, every second he went, but it was just looking around. You're looking at it's a one-off feeling when you look at the way that the Wembley was, the colour, and then you realise what it means.
How long do you think it was before that sort of came into your mind? What have we done here?
Yes, well, difficult to. I think I will always remember my first team coach, Graham Barrow, that he's been a manager for Wigan in '95. He's the one that he signed me when I was a young player, and is someone that is always calm, is always in control. And I can remember him running towards the middle of the pitch at Wembley, and then he came to me and he had a tear coming from his eye, and he said, "We just won the FA Cup," in a way that he could not believe it. I realized then what we actually did, because if he got emotional, it was something big.
Let me ask you one question. If you could change things and you could stay up but lose the final, would you take that, or would you stick with what you've got?
No, I would rather have both.
No, but I'm not giving you both.
No, in football,
no, I'm asking. I know you can't.
You can,
but I'm just saying. Would you change it if you could?
No, I think what, looking back, he said we gave everything we had to achieve both. And what we end up is what an incredible achievement that is going to be there for the rest of our history. Our fans at Wigan, they were very quick to tell us that relegation is something that you can overcome in the next few years, and you will always see a team coming back into the Premier League, or you could always get relegated the year after. But the title, the actual winning the FA Cup title or putting your name on that famous trophy is unique. So from the fans' point of view, I understood straight away that was a massive achievement. And in football, we are all involved to create those sort of moments. And as a fan, you want to win the FA Cup. Getting relegated or getting promoted, that's something that is part of the journey. But winning those moments of winning a trophy is quite unique.
Do you think without the FA Cup run, you'd have survived?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
You think it cost the club in many ways?
I wouldn't say the run. I would say the final. Remember, the final was, I don't think how many times in the history of the FA Cup has been played before the final game of the season. That was very unfair. I think the actual success in the FA Cup helped our squad to finish strong in the league, because we got a lot of young players playing in the FA Cup and they became available to play in the league. So in that respect, it went hand by hand. But the final was on a Saturday, and then we had to play Arsenal on a Tuesday, where Arsenal had 10 days to prepare the game, and we were emotionally drained more than physically. And it's a game that we expected to win, and we did it before. I think at Wigan we developed that belief that going into the last 10 games of the season we will get the points that we needed to achieve our aim, and we got 36 points, which is not a relegation that it was a big margin. The game before the final, that we dropped 2 points at home or 3 points at home, and then the game after the final. If the final would have been played as the last game of the season, like it normally is, I think we would have stayed up.
What was your favourite moment of that day, of the cup final day?
I've never had, maybe this is the first time I had 2 minutes of looking back and trying to think. I think in football, you just move on for the next game. And if I'm honest with you, I don't think we celebrated that day. We didn't have time to celebrate because we were preparing for the game on Tuesday. But I
suppose that's a shame as well. The fact that you got this vitally important league game scuppered the chance to actually enjoy this magical moment.
But probably that's in football. You never get the opportunity to control when the fixtures should be played. You need to adapt towards it. But it wasn't right to play the FA Cup final just before the final game of the season. Wasn't right. But when you look back, every single member of the team and the staff, and as a fan, you've got your own memory and you got your own moment, and you could make your own film, because that's what this trophy does. It brings you an incredible background and gives you an opportunity to create a special moment. I've got many, from a phone call to my dad just before the game to the phone call after.
Just tell us about those phone calls.
Well, my dad is my dad is always, since I remember, we always speak about football, and everything has been about tactics. When he was a manager locally in our hometown, and why he would play someone, how he could get an advantage to someone. So he always watches the games from Spain, and he's very strong with his opinions.
He gives you his view, does he?
Yes, he's not shy to do that, but in a very good way. And I remember that he was adamant. Said you just you can be better than Man City if you play in the same manner that you played 6 weeks ago. And those conversations they never carry any emotion.
And how soon after the final whistle did you speak to your dad?
He was well, as you know, with the press commitments, you're taking nearly enough. At least 2 hours, and I will always remember that Roberto Martinez was so gracious, and everyone at Manchester City, they were so gracious in defeat, and it took a long time. I think it was a couple of hours, and then I saw him because he came to the final. My dad came down, and we had a good conversation then.
He was proud.
He was, and he was wrong as well with what he said tactically before the game, so I was even happier.
If you're with Everton now, would that be something, having lived it and gone through that experience, you'd love to do that with Everton, I'm sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's Everton, as you know, because you've been well involved in the history of the club. We got five 5 titles in the FA Cup and another.
I played
8.
in the final, they didn't win.
Well, you got another 8 finals, but that's Everton. We are a club that we have to win titles, and I know that as a manager you need to be careful and not wanting to be unrealistic, because you know the finances that they are involved in the game now, and you got 6, 7, 8 clubs that they spend a lot of money, and they got the right to be talking about winning finals and winning titles. But at Everton, we need to find a way to win titles. Is the fans? They've been brought up with that. Is, you know, a DNA. I've seen it traveling all over Europe now with Everton. It's an incredible experience, and I'll never ever stop working 1 second until we do that.
You see some clubs, Premier League clubs and clubs elsewhere, that sometimes they think, right, the league's so much more important, and they don't play their strongest team, for example, and not that they give it away, but they don't perhaps give the competition the respect it deserves. Have you ever been tempted in that?
No, I remember I won the FA Cup at Wigan, and I made 11 changes from one game in the league and going into the cup. I don't think nowadays the squad. The game has changed immensely. You're working with squads of 23, 24 players. If you want to be successful in 10 months, you need to be able to make changes. That doesn't mean anything. Sometimes giving an opportunity to a young player in the cup is right, because it doesn't carry the same pressure that it carries in the league. And that shouldn't be seen as disrespecting the competition or not wanting to win the game. Clearly, if you make 6, 7 changes and you cannot win the game, or the team is not as strong, you got a real problem, because this in the modern game you need to have a strong enough squad that you could make 6, 7 changes and be at the same level to be able to compete.
So it's still important to clubs like Everton, to managers that...
I think it's massively important, and I think people measure it by making substitutions and in the modern game, as I say, the squad is so important. If you want to be successful over the course of 10 months, you cannot survive with 12 players. It's impossible.
Great stuff. Happy?
Super,
Great.
fantastic,
Roberto, appreciate that. That's really good. Beautiful stuff.
What you shouldn't let is, I mean, old men are dangerous. I say this as being one. Old men are always dangerous. You should never let them make the decisions, because actually what they want is yesterday, and yesterday doesn't exist.